He specializes in infrastructure development projects and related litigation. He has extensive experience in energy, water, waste-based and transportation infrastructure projects. He advises clients on preparation and implementation of these projects using his expertise in civil law, construction law, environmental law, and public sector litigation.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Good morning. I hope more people will join us in a minute. Anyway, you may ask yourself what a Polish lawyer can tell you about doing business in China. Lawyers tend to give advice on their domestic, in their domestic jurisdiction, and this is also my case. But what I want to tell you about today and why I'm here today is to analyze the case of a failure of one of Chinese investment in Poland, actually the biggest investment that was to be made in Poland, which failed in a very spectacular manner. That was the investment to be made by KOWEC, the subsidiary of Chinese railway state-owned company, which was to construct a motorway in Poland just before the Eurocup 2012. And I think it's good to learn on someone else's failures, and that's why I think it's worthwhile to take a look a little bit at this case. Beforehand, I will tell you a few words about myself and my perspective, because it's also important to understand the speaker and its own experience. So as it was said, I'm a Polish lawyer from the local firm. However, we are covering all industries, and we are working with clients from many jurisdictions. Actually, we have on board also lawyers from different jurisdiction, which I'm underlining, as it is important to also know that we are dealing with foreign clients every day, and that's nothing special about that. Right, and as such, we are trying to combine our expertise and international dimension, although we are local. We are from Poland, right? For people from the Czech Republic, you know very well for what does it mean. But I sometimes realize that from people from countries like China, this is Europe or Central Eastern Europe. So some basic facts about Poland, and Poland has been developing quite well and constantly and rapidly. Maybe it's not a good word, but it has been developing over the last years, creating good opportunities for investments, and no wonder that Chinese investors are always also looking into that direction. Right. Why to do business in Poland? This is from our legal perspective. It's how we perceive that. We'll see further that Chinese investors perceive this a little bit differently. And this is all my presentation is about the perception. I would say that this is crucial from my perspective to win or to lose, how you perceive the place that you are going to invest, how people perceive you. So we think that this is open market, open for public procurement, which is based on the most advantageous offer criterion, which gives the quite often Chinese bidders an ability to offer very competitive prices. Public projects are transparent and subject to close scrutiny. We think that the market is already well established with high quality legal professionals who can help doing business. Legal environment as such is stable and not discriminative. It also refers to Chinese investors. We have a good taxation system. We have, that's how we perceive it, quite competent and actually fair public authorities. If we are asked by the clients whether Polish public authorities would be biased towards Polish side rather than whatever, Japanese or, no, we will think it won't be biased by definition. Of course it can happen, but in general it's not a problem. And there are other business incentives. We think that our court system is quite effective. Of course, arbitration is also available as everywhere else. cost levels are at a decent level, and so Poland can be perceived as the entry to the rest of the EU, to bigger markets. Right, and what do Chinese do in Poland? As you will see, the figures, not much, right? The foreign direct investments are, in my opinion, not impressive given the size of course, the potential of China and also the size of Poland. There are some investments, but for sure they could be much bigger. So the question is why the level is so low, right? And how do Chinese perceive this this market and the entry barriers? There was a study run by KPMG, and these are the results. Well, the problem is the language. The administrative and core procedures are conducted exclusively in Polish, which is a problem, and so it means that you have to have someone speaking Polish, you have to trust such a person, and you have to use local partners to help you with that formalities. And the amount of formalities is being perceived as a problem as such, paperwork and procedures. Of course, not everybody is speaking English, so this is another reason why you have to have someone local speaking Polish in this case, or probably Czech in the Czech Republic case, or other languages. There are strict regulations of working time, right, as in other EU countries, and this is being quite severely perceived. The infrastructure is not that good. However, this is being changed all the time, and the infrastructure is developing. Chinese investors also perceive some problems with with court dispute resolution, which I don't know what was the nature of those problems. I think procedural ones, but to me it's just another question of understanding. Because I think that in overall, taking the statistics of other EU countries, our court system is not worse. It's quite efficient, in fact. Right. So here it comes. In 2009, 2010, the contract was concluded by the company Kovek. It's a big Chinese company owned by the state-owned railways company. So it's a big player for the construction of a stretch of a motorway from two major cities, Łódź and Warsaw, and that was just the beginning, the Eurocup 2012, which was a big thing in Poland, and the government was trying very much to build as many motorways as possible, and there were other infrastructure investments going on, and lots of money were spent towards that. The Chinese put the lowest bid, less than 50% of the amount that was initially budgeted by the government. So that's quite a significant difference, right? And we are speaking about the $1 billion contract. So the difference between the prices the government was contemplating and the bid given by the Chinese was really huge. So that was very sexy, very attractive. The temptation to conclude this contract was really high. Usually, when the difference in price offered by the bidder and the budget is so high, it should be subject to special scrutiny, whether the price was properly calculated and if it is certain that the contract will be concluded. And in this case, as we know from the later facts, such a scrutiny was conducted, and the authorities who were doing the scrutiny, they came to the conclusion that the price was properly calculated and that there is no threat that the bidder would fail to perform the contract. Right. But it happened, right? In mid-2011, the contract was terminated by both parties, the contractor and the government. And that was clearly a disaster for both parties. the Chinese investor was to lose a huge amount of money, and the government, maybe it's an exaggeration a little bit if I would say, was about to collapse, but that was a political issue. The government didn't want this to happen, right? The roads construction was always in Poland very political topic. People are always complaining we don't have such a road networks as we would like it to have, and the government is always being accused of that. So this is the thing they didn't want to happen, I mean the government. But things went that bad that they were not able to stop it. So both parties has terminated the contract, and the dispute erupted, and that was just before the Eurocup, and there was a very big coverage in media how the spectators would come to Warsaw. The road is unfinished, disaster, right? So there were so many articles in the press, and why it happened, what these Chinese did. They wanted to build some half-standard road, or what happened, right? And it was reported in the press that they were offering so low prices based on the use of Chinese employees working below European labor and environmental standards. So that's how they were able to offer attractive terms, which were unattainable for other EU companies, right? And the other factor was that the investor didn't took into account all appropriate legal constraints stemming from the European legislation on the wide range of issues, from labor to immigration standards, which made completion of the work unprofitable for Kowek, and underestimated the cost of the subcontractors and materials, right? The roads were constructed all over Poland, which inevitably resulted in a significant increase of materials for road construction, and subcontractors were also charging much more. All resulted in a fact that this road was half finished, and a big dispute erupted between Polish government and Kowek and tens of its subcontractors. And actually, we were working for Kowek on a part of disputes, on these disputes with the subcontractors, and that's why I allow myself to present my view on that. And my view is that, for sure, it was nobody's goal, neither Kowek's, neither the government, to have such a failure. That was everybody's failure here. Secondly, maybe those reasons that were reported in the press, they are partly true, but the underlying reason why it all happened is simply cultural clashes and miscommunications. From what I understood from my contacts with these Chinese clients was that they were expecting something different. They were expecting a different approach from the authorities. They were Mr. Meng from the Golden Gate. He was before the break. He was giving the presentation on the arbitration and dispute resolution in China, and also on that how much of the emphasis is being put on conciliation and on mediation, on stuff like this. Whereas in our reality, where once the bid is submitted and the contract is concluded, the government actually has very limited or legally no powers to manipulate with it, right? To negotiate its terms. There's a contract which needs to be performed, and there are penalties, and there are strict deadlines, and everything is very strict, right? And there is no further room for maneuvers. Should even the government would like very much to change it, they couldn't, because they were also subject to scrutiny by other European subcontractors who were afraid, who were terrified, in fact, by the fact that the big Chinese construction company would come into such a profitable market as the Polish market. And all that led to the problems which could have been avoided should the understanding of the other party, in this case, should the understanding of the Polish party by the Chinese been more profound, and probably the other way around, because should the government realize that the other parties has such a misconcept of what could happen, maybe the contract wouldn't be concluded, and I think that these differences in culture are so deep that it can never be underestimated. It comes to language, right? When you speak with not all of our clients were speaking English, we were speaking through translators, and the language is so different that for me it was even difficult to guess whether someone I'm speaking with through a translator is asking me, or is angry, or is happy. With all the European languages, even if you don't speak the language, you can understand somehow whether the person is happy or unhappy. And here the language is so different that it really makes that the understanding is much more difficult. It was also mentioned here the hierarchy, right? This is also what we experienced speaking with different people from the contractor. And actually only one people was able to take decisions. We've been negotiating and explaining things to different persons, and you always need to know who is the correct person to speak with, right? That was also very clear. So my experience was that the Chinese were deeply disappointed by the behavior of the Polish party, by the behavior of the Polish government. And my guess would be that the European contractor, even if put in the same situation, wouldn't be so disappointed, because it would know that the government would play hard, would play like this. That is something that we observe every day, and we also observe these differences with clients from different countries, and for me it's always funny, and it's a good part of the job to work with people who are different. Like with French, my experience is like there's always the time pressure. They like very much to call you very late in the night and ask for something to be done for Monday, let's say. And I get the impression that it goes from the very top there, right? For instance, our Greek clients are very lovable people, and I've been so many times to Athens discussing with them, discussing things. Maybe it's not very productive, but that's the way they work, at least in my experience. Whereas German clients, actually, whom I like to work with, my experience that they are very often very well prepared, has a presentation of the matter, and it is very easy for the lawyer to understand what the client is expecting, and that's of course in all business it's crucial to understand the expectations of the other parties. Scandinavians are very informal. They love very short and direct communication. No formal opinion, no formal referring to each other, straight to the point. Americans are very hardworking, and when they work, and that's everything for which counts, which is of course very efficient. And so the question is how to understand the Chinese and how to work with the Chinese to make it efficient, right? I think if we are speaking about making business with people from such a distant culture than ours, we need to really spend a lot of time to try to understand what is their attitude to business, right? What they expect from you, to avoid such a situation as it happened in Poland, to try to find some common language, right? To find a person who will be able to talk to both of us, having experience from there and here. Without it, I think it is extremely difficult. When COVID came to Poland, they just found some advisors who didn't know how to work with Chinese, who were maybe not the first league, so to say, and they, I think, didn't realize that they need to explain to the client much more than should it be a German client or a Scandinavian. So that was the reason of the failure, and these cultural differences are, in my opinion, from my perspective, from my experience, something which, while thinking about doing business in China with Chinese, needs to be very much taken into consideration. In other words, we cannot somehow judge and expect from other people to do as we would think they should behave, or as we would behave if we were them. We are, I mean, Europeans, right? Different in many aspects, and that needs to be respected. Without this element, there is a great threat of miscommunication and failure. That's it. Should I be able to ask any question, I would be very happy. If not, thank you very much.